arranged this, Timothy Alberino arranged this trip, and I've got to say it was mind-blowing in the fact that we got a personal tour, and not only a tour, but a lesson in history by one of, right now, the foremost explorer, adventure archaeologist in the world, Anselm P. Rambla. I'm not, Doug, excuse me, I'm not just going to share, and we're not just going to share about the True Legends conference that we had in Peru, but we're going to share some amazing discoveries with people that should cause them to actually put stuff into perspective. Richard Sauter and others have talked about the underground tunnel systems. I've talked about it, especially the correlation between wherever you have a known, well-developed or very legendary tunnel system, there's either a military base, there's either a church, monastery, convent, or something over it to control the entrance to it. So we were fortunate to go into the Concha, which is one of the largest churches in Cusco, Peru, that is literally the entranceway into the Chincana, which is the underground tunnel system, all the way to Sacsayhuama. Now, why Sacsayhuama is so important, that's probably the most pronounced megalithic, or what we would call cyclopean architecture site in the world. But in tracking this thing, we also found out that it appears to be the largest stargate in the world. So just as Mount Graham and the Lucifer telescope have been under Vatican control, looking to the skies and obviously looking for something that they know is coming, the control of the Chincana, the tunnel system that leads to Sacsayhuaman and beyond, and if you look at the celestial coordinates, it's mind-boggling. No one but someone with a heavenly, if you will, viewpoint, I'm not talking godly, but I'm talking about something that came to earth, could have laid it out more correctly. So what we were privileged to see, and I'm going to put this, I'm not going to put it, but I'm going to have my guy put it up on the website, so you'll see it tomorrow. The picture literally of Anselm P. Rambla and Timothy Alberino standing in front of an altar in the Concha, and that's spelled Coricancha, with literally the door that Anselm was given permission to go in, searching for the searching for the Chincana. And basically, Doug, when Tim comes on, I will have him go into greater detail. I'll deal with some stuff in the end.
Steve, Tim is on.
With us.
Okay. Tim is
so
on.
Yeah, I'm gonna yield to him. Tim, I just basically laid out Anselm, and I'm going to post a picture of you and he standing in front of that altar thing where he showed us the floor. So, by the way, good job on the entire tour, and I think it's important that we share with people just some of the revelations that came out of it. So do you want to take it from there? Because, again, you're only on for an hour, I'm on for 90 minutes, so I want to let you speak until you need a break.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen. We had a fantastic trip out in Cusco, and one of the most astounding revelations that we received hanging out with Anselm P. Rambla, the renowned Spanish explorer, and some of the guys from his team, Boa Cruz, some of the guys that are actually on his team in Cusco were with us, and he showed us some of the work he's been doing over the last decade or so. And that work much of that work concerns Sacsayhuaman. Sacsayhuaman is a megalithic fortress. Well, it's really not a fortress, but it's what is referred to as a fortress. Many of the mainstream archaeologists claim that Sacsayhuaman was built as a citadel by Pachacutec, the Incan king. But there is not a single archaeologist that I've spoke with in Peru who will say privately that the Inca had anything to do with the building of Sacsayhuaman or the other megaliths in Peru for that matter. They have no idea who built the walls of Sacsayhuaman. They know that the Inca could not have done it. These are private conversations I've had with both archaeologists, anthropologists, historians, and men from other scientific disciplines in Peru, and these are Peruvian gentlemen. And they privately will tell you, publicly they'll say, and in their dissertations and in their papers, publicly they'll say that the Sacsayhuaman and all the other megaliths in Peru were built by the Inca. but privately they'll say no way. There's no way the Inca could build them, and they'll uh, usually they'll espouse the ancient aliens doctrine when talking about the walls of Sacsayhuaman. So it was very interesting to get the perspective of a man, Anselm P. Ramla, who actually did excavations at Sacsayhuaman and in other places, because most people who study the walls have never actually been privileged to dig into the soil around the walls. First of all, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman, what you see above ground, and what you see above ground is extremely impressive. But what you see above ground is only 15% of the entire complex, 15 to 20%. That means that 80% of Sacsayhuaman is still beneath the soils that were deposited, in our opinion, during the Great Flood. In fact, it's basically it looks as if it's sitting on a mountain, but it's not. It's an entire megalithic complex under the ground. In other words, 80% of that complex is buried under the ground, and Anselm was able to verify this with his excavations. But what was really intriguing, and I guess what the bottom line is here concerning Sacsayhuaman, is that Anselm has determined through his investigations, and he shared this with us in Cusco, that Sacsayhuaman is in fact a stargate, and the largest stargate on Earth. And that's why, part of the reason why Cusco has been called for so long and for so many reasons the navel of the world. Now, what's important to understand about Sacsayhuaman is, again, not just what you can see today, what's still existent today, because there's only 15 to 20% of the wall is exposed today, and much of that wall has been disassembled at the higher levels, was disassembled by the Spaniards, who used it to build their churches and other edifices that you find in the city of Cusco. But it's what's below that complex that is so important. And what's below Sacsayhuaman is a vast network of underground tunnels and caverns, both artificial and naturally occurring. And it's basically an entrance, and Steve, I don't think that this is far-fetched to say, it's basically an entrance into the underworld beneath Sacsayhuaman. And connecting to Sacsayhuaman, there is, from the Coricancha. The Coricancha was the primary temple of the Inca. That was, in fact, the Coricancha was the center of the empire. It was literally the center of the empire, and it's where the Inca held their most important festivals and celebrations and sacrifices and everything that in fact, that's, according to the chroniclers, that's where the Incan kings were entombed, was within the Coricancha, within what's called the Temple of the Sun. And they were actually mummified. The Incan kings were mummified, and they were set inside of the Coricancha on gilded thrones, and they wore these bejeweled cloaks that were encrusted with jewels and other precious metals. And these were dead, mummified kings sitting inside of the Coricancha because they were believed to be immortal. And every so often they would for certain ceremonies, they would take the kings out of the Coricancha, the dead kings, the mummified kings, and they would parade them around the city of Cusco as if they were still alive. So the Coricancha was the center of the empire. The walls of the Coricancha, of this Incan temple, were covered in plates of gold. There was, outside of the Coricancha, there was a garden that was about 5 acres, and it was filled with all kinds of gold and silver artifacts. And these were depictions of flowers and birds and animals and corn, the famous stalks of corn, that the leaves were made of pure gold, of pure silver, and the actual corn itself was made, the actual head of corn was made of pure gold. There was so much gold in the Coricancha that much of the famous ransom of Atahualpa, the ransom that the Incan king paid to be released by the Spaniards, came from the Coricancha. And so this was the center of the empire. This was the religious center point of the empire. And from the Coricancha, from the temple of the Inca, running from the Coricancha to Sacsayhuaman, actually to the underworld below Sacsayhuaman, to the labyrinth below Sacsayhuaman, was a 1 mile long megalithic tunnel. And the walls of that tunnel were covered in megalithic cyclopean architecture. extremely impressive megalithic Cyclopean architecture. So imagine it's impressive enough to consider the megalithic architecture that is above ground in the Coricancha and other places, but now consider megalithic architecture being constructed beneath the ground for 1 mile, running beneath the city of Cusco to the labyrinth beneath the Sacsayhuaman, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman, what archaeologists call the fortress of Sacsayhuaman, but which we believe now, because of Anselm's work, was in fact a stargate. So I don't believe that the Inca built that tunnel, and I don't believe that the Inca built the temple of the Coricancha, the temple of the sun. I believe that the whole complex, Sacsayhuaman and the megalithic foundations of the Coricancha and all of the other impressive megaliths found in the city of Cusco were in fact built by an advanced culture in the world before the flood of Noah, the antediluvian world, the pre-flood world, that there was an advanced culture building to great scale, very, very possibly giants, or at least giants might have been involved in the construction of this complex, and it was surely using an advanced form of masonry that has been lost to us because of the flood. So it is Sacsayhuaman and Cusco and the Coricancha and Cusco at large is, I believe, one of the most dynamic and important locations on the planet in terms of megaliths, in terms of giants, and in terms of the advanced civilizations that existed in the world before the flood. So it was astounding to actually be there with Steve, with L.A. Marsuli, with Anselm P. Rambla, and the rest of our crew, and all of our guests during the True Legends expedition and seminar. It was astounding to actually be on location, receiving this revelation from Anselm and his team and his work, that we were in fact standing in front of what was very likely the largest stargate on Earth.
And Doug, one of the things that I think is very interesting is when we were being shown a presentation by Anselm, and ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be putting out a DVD on this because there's just so much stuff to share on a radio program. You really got to see it. But one of the things that just kept going over and over in my mind, there are unusual holes or unusual references to holes, and directly across from the big walls that you'll see. I'm posting all these shots, photos, Tim, on my website daily, and I should have that one of you and Anselm standing and looking at the very thing on the floor, the doorway into the Shinkana, but it looks like a step pyramid that's been filled in over the years. And what's fascinating about this is it's kind of like this. Imagine, if you will, a giant coliseum, circular. The field area is circular, and or actually more oval-like. And imagine that the sounds that everyone's hearing around the world are preemptory. Now, some may be fake, some may be generated, but at some point, something opens and will open this. And I won't say this for sure, but I've been praying, Doug, Joe, and Tim, about this. Is this truly the entrance to the bottomless pit that opens up? If it is a navel of civilization, it was called that. I think Tim's got or was on YouTube, and maybe on my site, linkable still. There's a reason why all of the references to harmonic levitation, for those of you that ever bought my book, True Legends, obviously that's the name of the series. Go to the back of the book, literally the back cover, and you'll see a giant, if you will, Incan or Mayan levitating rocks by using a strange system of basically acoustic levitation. This is not New Age. It is not Spiritism. It is not mysticism. It's the same principle in which UFOs and other unidentified flying objects and reverse-engineered flying objects work doing by generating electrogravitics. Electrogravitics. There we go. And what else is really important is this. Tim and I in L.A. met with Brian Forrester. He's convinced these things are giant machines, and with good reason. Now, obviously, to get a feel for this, we're going to be reconstructing this with one of the, I think, the premier concept artists in the world. And if you've seen Holocaust of Giants, many of the stills, the motion graphics in there were done by our artists. And by the way, Tim, he's working on Sacsayhuaman right now. And Tim's in, by the way, he's in another part of Ohio, and I'm in Bozeman, so we're not sitting in the same studio. So I don't get to talk to him except when I'm on the air very much, unless we email each other. But I'm going to encourage people, if you want the heads up. Now, look, we're not following anybody on YouTube. We're not stealing anybody's stuff, although, our stuff, Doug, is stolen and printed, and thank God, Rhonda, bless you for finding all these pirates. But the thing is that I'm telling you this, there was such a sense of awe that we're not looking at old history. We're previewing one of the most important contemporary events yet to come. And by the grace of God and through his mercy, I'm telling you, we're absolutely on the cusp of multiple revelations breaking out all over the world, and the powers that be, Doug, will not be able to contain it.
It's amazing, man. It's amazing.
Yeah. So again, here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, you need to get a copy of our, DVD series. This isn't a pitch, but we've got to take you from where we left off in the Holocaust of Giants to what we're talking about, because, again, it is so important. The Unholy See has to be the most important, I'd say, DVD until the Holocaust of Giants came out. And, Doug, it seems like God is giving us precept upon precept, revelation upon revelation. And, look, we pray about this stuff. We had a miracle. And, Tim, I want you to explain, number one, we also have a propensity getting in trouble. So we were in the Coricancha, and, you could tell that Rome's finest were there. I'm not making fun of any Catholics. I'm talking about their intelligence service, because they did not want us to film. Fortunately, God had arranged for the same prior, what is Tim, Father Gamara, what was he when he gave Anselm the right to dig there? What do you call the head guy?
He was the prior. The prior refers to the head, to the head Dominican at that particular cathedral.
Yeah. Now listen to this. Now I'm just going to say this, and you take it from here. We were told that Father Gamara, the head prior, former guy that had given Anselm permission, wasn't in there. He wasn't to be found. And that was by the guy wearing probably, my guess, $2,000 suit, probably a $500 tie, earpieces, and I know the difference between head spooks and little spooks. This guy was a head spook. So, Tim, take it from there. I mean, we're Anselm. Go ahead.
Well, we had unprecedented access to the Coricancha, but specifically to the Cathedral of Santo Domingo, which is connected to the Coricancha, actually sitting on top of it. And the whole area, the convent, the cathedral, the Coricancha itself, is all now owned by the Vatican, specifically by the Dominican Order, and has been since right after the conquest of the city of Cusco by Francisco Pizarro. So, it is strictly forbidden to film inside of any Catholic church in Peru, especially inside of the Church of Santo Domingo. And so we went the first time we went and we filmed for the Unholy See. We had to do it undercover. This time we had a group of about 40 people. Everybody had cameras and cell phones. We had our professional camera crew and our professional cameras and tripods and all the paraphernalia of a camera crew. And we walked in with Anselm P. Ramla and began to film. And Anselm began to take us around the church and show us everywhere he excavated inside the church, primarily where he excavated and discovered where he had gone down into the Shinkana in 1982, and then where he came back in the year 2000 to actually do a professional excavation to open the Shinkana. And if you've seen our second film, you know exactly what we're talking about. So he showed us exactly where he was, what he was doing, and we were able to stand there with Anselm and film the whole thing. And it was absolutely fascinating, because there's no way you can walk in with a group of 40 people and cameras without having somebody like Anselm P. Ramla with you. And so we filmed for a while, and then finally some of the security guys showed up and wanted us to turn the cameras off, but Anselm was speaking with great authority, because he had he knew all of the Dominicans at the time, and in 2000, many of whom were still there, and he was demanding to see Father Gamara, who was a good friend of his, who was the head of the Dominican order in Cusco during the time in which he was doing his excavation. So we were able to film a whole lot. It was fascinating, and I know those who were on the trip agreed that it was absolutely fascinating, and those who were on this trip got to be a part of something that will never happen again. I mean, it was unprecedented access with Anselm P. Ramla. And then to top it all off, these guys told Anselm that Father Gamara was no longer around. He wasn't in the city of Cusco anymore, and that he couldn't be contacted. And they lied right to his face, because after a while, Anselm finally, well, I don't even think they told him anything. We agreed to turn the cameras off after we had filmed everything we wanted to film. We walked out of the Church of Santo Domingo, and we walked next door, which is still part of church property, the Coricancha, which was the interior of the Coricancha. We walked in with our camera crew, which you don't just walk into the Coricancha with a camera crew either, but we did. And during the course of our filming, Father Gamara shows up, and Father Gamara at this point in time, I think, is 70-some years old, and I think he's in his mid to late 70s, and he shows up in his Dominican robe. And Anselm hadn't seen Father Gamara for I think 15 years, and so it was this amazing reunion. It was a very heartwarming, emotional reunion between Anselm P. Ramla and Father Gamara, and they embraced, and Father Gamara welcomed us and told us that Anselm told us that Father Gamara was the reason why excavations were ever even begun and had ever begun in the Coricancha in the first place. And it's true, Father Gamara opened the door. Father Gamara, unlike many of the other agents of Rome in Cusco, wanted the truth concerning the Coricancha to be known. Now let me explain something. The knowledge of the Coricancha was only passed down by the Dominicans from prior to prior. In other words, from head Dominican to head Dominican. The lay Dominicans, the Dominican priests were not privy to the information concerning the Shinkana. Only the head Dominican, the prior, had access to the library. Him and a few others, and the knowledge of the Shinkana was passed down from prior to prior. So, in other words, when a new head Dominican was appointed and brought into the Church of Santo Domingo, the previous prior, the prior that was handing off the scepter of authority, if you will, would brief the incoming head priest concerning the Shinkana. And it's important for everybody to know that the Shinkana, according to traditional history, according to conventional history, conventional archaeology, the Shinkana and the underground world beneath Cusco is a myth. It's a wives' tale. It's a legend. There's nothing true about it, and it's a conspiracy theory. But Anselm P. Ramla proved back in 2000 that in fact it was not a myth. It was real, and you have to understand the implications of the Shinkana being real. Because what you're talking about is this vast labyrinth, this vast underworld hidden beneath the soils of the Andes Mountain that exists. And not only is there legends of this vast underworld, there's also many legends concerning the entities that inhabit it. So it's a massive. The implications are absolutely massive concerning the Shinkana. So there we are, standing in the Church of Santo Domingo with Anselm P. Ramla embracing his old friend Father Gamara. And Father Gamara looks at the camera. He looks right at the camera, and he makes this statement, which is it is historic. I mean, we witnessed history being made in the Coricancha. He looked at the camera and he said, "The Shinkana is here," and he pointed down. The Shinkana is here. Now that is a closely guarded secret, passed from prior to prior, and he's looking at our group of 40 people, and he's looking into our camera, and he is disclosing to the world that the Shinkana is real, and it is here. It is beneath the soils of the Coricancha. And that's an explosive statement because, again, of the implications associated with it. Now, remember, there are the term Shinkana in general, refers to the underworld beneath the Andes. Now, that's tunnels, that's caverns. Some of those tunnels are artificially occurring. Some of those tunnels are naturally occurring.
Well, as Tim was saying, I don't know if I can effectively stress the importance of this. We were flat out lied to, and lied to our face. And this Father Gamarra being able to meet Anselm was a pretty moving thing. I actually have photos, Tim. Tim hasn't seen the 1,000 photos I took, literally, not of just this event. But you could see two incredible men embracing each other, and they were both weeping because, again, this man, Father Gamarra, who was the head prior, was removed from office because somebody got really nervous. And so, Doug, here's what I want to get people to understand. We're undertaking, and this is no understatement, and it's because of the grace of God. You know, He chooses the foolish things to confound the wise. We're taking on the biggest subject, i.e. giants, i.e. stargates, i.e. core reality, and you know, if it wasn't for the people that buy our DVDs, we couldn't do this because it takes a lot of money. And I mean, a lot of money, and you know, to run film teams all over the world. I want people to go to Legends, plural, the series.com, because they can watch the Holocaust of Giants on Vimeo. They can stream it. They can stream it as many times as they want. The same thing for the Unholy Sea. And right now, what is unfolding, and I shared this 24 years ago on talk radio, I said one of the biggest wars in history that's going to come is going to become within the Catholic Church between the traditional Catholics and between the desire of the Luciferians or the anti-Pope forces to overthrow all religious traditions of historic Catholicism. I'm not praising it. I'm just saying, you know, 24 years ago, man, they thought I had 4 eyes instead of 3. But the point is that what we're undertaking literally, and we relish your prayers, and we're undertaking some of the most unbelievable. You know, I've talked to a lot of people, some very wealthy, and I pray that God touches their hearts to get behind this, because we're out there, and Tim and the film crew lays their life on the line. This is not being melodramatic, but what just transpired in Cusco, Peru, last week and was witnessed. I think I understand now, Tim, the conference. No one can ever say that was made up. The biggest lie in the world, one of the biggest lies in the world, is uncovered. And the reason they want to cover the lie or lie and cover up the tunnels is because they lead all over the world. Now, let me share this, how it ties into Antarctica. For literally myth and legends of legendary times, there's always been associated this vast underground tunnel system that runs worldwide. Even Greg Evenson and some of his military contacts, remember when I think I was on your show and they were talking about some of these things broke free and were in the tunnels headed to South America? Now, I don't have any current updates, but I will tell you this, that something is going to trigger. A form of energy is going to be released. I'm not talking metaphysical. I'm talking literal energy, maybe unknown to us at this time. I don't know if it's a cosmic ray bombardment or whatever, that's going to trigger the opening of Sacsayhuaman. And if you notice all the stories coming out about these energy waveforms coming from Antarctica, they're headed right towards the coast of South America. A lot of it heads towards the west coast of South America. But I have another interesting revelation. I've been praying about this, and Tim, you and I even haven't talked about this. When Cain slew Abel, the scripture records that righteous Abel's blood cried out. Now, we know that there have actually been studies done on the frequency of blood. And literally, you know, in Genesis chapter 4, it goes into amazing detail about that and why this is critical. And let me just read this real quick. And he said, this is God speaking to Abel after he has slain Cain. And he said, "What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now thou art cursed from the earth, which has opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. Okay? The idea here, though, is basically verse 10, the brother's blood crieth out unto me from the ground. Now, Tim did a great job of explaining. One thing that people forget is this was one of the most ruthless and bloody civilizations in the world. And I can't calculate it because I don't know the frequency of blood drawing, but imagine, Tim, if all of the ritual sacrifices, obviously because of the blood, cannibalism, etc., but imagine the combined frequency of that. In essence, I'm suggesting that their legends told them that it was specific forms of sound that would literally open the ground. So, again, I haven't even gone further than that. Doug, you'll find this interesting. I was praying before I went on the radio. I said, Lord, show me something I've never seen before. And for the record, I've never thought that thought before. Tim?
Well, I find that quite provocative, that thought, because it seems to me, having studied the Incan Empire and the fall of the Incan Empire, which is an incredible read. If you ever want to read something if you ever want to read a true historical account that's better than any movie you've ever seen, read the fall of the Incan Empire. Read the invasion of the Spaniards, the whole story, the whole historical account as detailed by the chroniclers concerning the invasion of Peru and the fall of the Incan Empire. It's absolutely fascinating. But it seems to me that the coming of the Spaniards was it seems it was divine providence. And I don't mean in the sense that they believed. It wasn't a divine they weren't divinely mandated by the Holy Catholic Church, by the Vatican and the Crown of Spain to go and take over the land of Peru, to take the land of Peru from the Incans and subdue the Incan people. But I believe that, you talked about the blood crying out, I believe that the Incan Empire had descended to such a degree of bloodlust and bloodletting and paganism that the hour for their destruction had come, that the cup was full and it was time for their destruction. And if you read the historical account of the fall of the Incan Empire, you'll see what I mean, because it was just absolutely mind-blowing the way that the Inca, this great, massive, the largest empire on earth at the time, how it just crumbled to pieces, how it fell in a domino effect, one thing leading to another, and the empire was literally captured by 168 conquistadors. And we're talking about an empire that could field 200,000 soldiers, fell to 168 conquistadors. And it's just a bizarre story, fascinating story. So I do believe that you're onto something there, Steve, that their cup had run over, that the transgression of the Inca was complete, and the hour had come for their demise. And I'll go further, and I'll say this, that the Inca had among them a priest order, a secret society of priests almost, and these were called the Amautas, and the Amautas were the great teachers, the wise men of the Inca. They were the keepers of the knowledge, and among them were the Quipucamayus, which were the keepers of quipus, the only form of communication, written or encoded communication, that the Inca possessed. And the Amautas, having studied the history of the conquest and then looking into some of the traditions of the Inca themselves and then talking to guys like Anselm P. Rambla, I am absolutely convinced that the Inca Amautas and perhaps even the Incan emperors were in contact with non-human entities residing in the Shinkana. And that was part of the reason why their empire had descended into such bloodlust and into such paganism. Now, if you go to Peru today, you will get this fable. You'll be told this fable, and it will be presented to you in the many representations and the paintings and the music and all of the tradition of the Inca will seem to be benevolent. That this was a wonderful, highly advanced, loving culture that just wanted peace and tranquility and so forth. That couldn't be further from the truth. The Incan Empire, much like the empire of the Aztecs and the Maya before them, was a totally despotic kingdom. It was a blood cult. It was absolutely a blood cult. There was a ruling elite, and only the ruling elite, the nobles, those who were of the blood royale, only they were Inca. They were the only ones who were called Inca. The other native tribes did not have the right to be called Inca, were not Inca. They were part of the empire. They were subjugated by the Inca. But the Inca themselves, the blood royale, the royal blood of the Inca, were the only ones who could bear that epithet. They were the only ones. And there's a reason for that. It was a blood cult. In fact, the Incan kings, the Incan emperors, and the Incan nobles would marry their sisters in order to preserve the bloodline. This was a blood cult, very reminiscent of the blood cult of the Nazis that would come later on in history, and of course reminiscent to many of the blood cults that existed before the Inca. So this wasn't something new. This was a repetition of something very, very old. In fact, the religion of the Inca was a sun cult. And this is the most ancient of occult rites, which was the worship of the sun and the serpent. And this was certainly the religion of the land in the Incan Empire, as it was in the Aztec and Mayan empires. The sun and the serpent. This was the duality. This was the dual deities of the sun and the serpent, of Inti, the sun god, and Viracocha, the serpent god. And Viracocha in Peru is depicted in many cases as a man. Sometimes you'll find him depicted as a bearded man with blue eyes and blonde hair and so forth, very much like Kukulkan, the Maya, and Quetzalcoatl of the Aztecs. So this is the same group of entities that are interacting with these civilizations. They're interacting with them, and they're giving them technology and knowledge that was forbidden. It was knowledge that came from the world before the great cataclysm, before the flood of Noah. So I believe that these were exiles from the world, from the antediluvian world, from the world before the great flood, that were teaching, that were in communication with the Inca elite in Peru and with other native tribes, especially the Aztec and the Maya in Central America. By the way, the fall of the Aztec is it's almost parallel, although it happened a generation before. It's almost parallel to the fall of the Incan Empire. I mean, it's astounding the similarities that you find between the two, and that you find not only between the fall of those empires, but between the empires themselves. The Central American Empire, the Aztec Empire, was much more overtly bloody, was much more overtly pagan. But the Incan Empire, as I said, was about the Inca elite. It was about the elite household, the royal bloodline, and preserving that royal bloodline. The Inca did not look like the tribes they subjugated. Many of the depictions of the Inca show them as having paler skin, even mustaches in some depictions. And these are historical depictions. These are not modern depictions, but ones from the time of the conquest and after the conquest. So there's something very strange going on with the Inca elite, with the royal bloodline. And I believe, as I said, I believe that the Amautas, the great masters of among the priests, the high priests and the keepers of the traditions and the oral traditions and the knowledge, were in fact in contact with non-human entities residing in the Shinkana, beneath the Andes Mountains. And that those very same entities were also in contact with the Aztec, the priests of the Aztec. And the nature of those entities, although you'll hear many people out there saying that the nature of these entities is benevolent and wonderful, these are great entities, the nature in these entities can be clearly seen in the nature of the cultures that they influenced, vis-a-vis the Aztec and the Incan Empire, which were bloody, which were despotic. These were tyrannical kingdoms. These were kingdoms, both of them, which worshiped the sun and a form of Viracocha. Viracocha in the land of the Inca and the empire of the Inca, Kukulkan and Quetzalcoatl in the land of the Maya and the Aztec. These are the same entities. These are the same beings that are communicating with these empires. And God saw fit within 2 generations to bring them both to naught, to destroy them, to annihilate them off the face of the earth in an extraordinary fashion.
And that would lead in, Doug, to the idea that their blood cries out from the ground. Also, Numbers 13:32. Exactly. I'm sorry.
I just said precisely. That's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm sorry. But listen, everyone, the photo of Timothy Alberino and Anselm P. Rambla in the Corey Concha is now up on my website. Please go to Photo of the Day. You've got to understand what we're telling you. When Jesus said he's going to give us the keys to the kingdom, he's going to give us the keys to the kingdom of God. But the kingdom of darkness is going to fight back. And one of the reasons we do this, I get this all the time, Doug, what does this have to do with salvation? Everything. When God gave his promise to Joshua and Caleb to take the land, they had to do one thing. They had to dispossess the land of the giants. The giants were cannibalistic, bloodthirsty pagans who hated the living God. What we have now are the bloodthirsty pagans coming from all over the world, practicing cannibalism, practicing drinking blood. It's going from ritual vampirism to literal vampirism. And just as Joshua and Caleb, this is the word of the Lord, the people of God are going to have to dispossess the land that God has given the people of God, the Christians, their inheritance. They're going to have to fight the good fight of faith, and it will be the power of God, the same power of God that drove the giants out of the promised land. They went to Sardinia, and then they went all over the world, bringing their tyranny, their thirst for blood, and that's how big this project is. So please, those of you who have the ability, pray about helping us, because we already have, our next advanced team out on the trail of live giants. Now, I know that. I'll believe it when I see it. You don't understand, ladies and gentlemen. It's the prayer of the intercessors. It's the faith of those. I want to thank everybody that went to the conference in Cusco, because you were a part of history being made. You weren't looking back in history. You were looking, if anything, the historic past is nothing more than a mirror to the future. So what I'm saying, Tim, and you get this too, I mean, if we compared our emails, there'd be nothing left to do. There'd be no time left to work in the day. But this is huge, pun intended. And so, please go to the photo of the day, stevequayle.com. And here's what I wrote, Tim. I said, the doorway into the underground tunnel system at the Corey Concha, the Shinkana that leads to Sacsayhuama, the largest stargate in the world, is shown to the True Legends Conference attendees in Cusco, Peru. There is no way that Father Gamarra could have been there at this exact time that the crew was there, the film crew. There was no checking schedules. This was a sovereign act of God. So I would just tell everyone this. We are presenting by the grace of God, and I want to thank you for your intercession for Timothy Alberino, for myself, and for those of us who are involved in this. Anybody who's ever bought a DVD of ours, thank you. Anybody who's ever bought a book, True Legends, thank you. And I want everyone to go on TrueLegendsTheSeries.com. And I'll say this, we had no idea of everybody that was there, but I will tell you one thing, some of the people that were there were of, and I say this, world-class wealth, okay? Not one of them offered to help us. I'm not complaining, okay? But even though we didn't know at the time who was there, it was astonishing to have God. And Tim, I thought about this too. We had people from South Africa there. We had people, a couple from Australia, London, and Moscow. Doug, this is a thing that only God can arrange. And I mean, again, it's kind of tough to jump for joy at Cusco. Cusco's what, Tim, almost 11,000 feet?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And so the thing is please get involved with us. Please help us. Because, look, here's the deal. I said to the Lord, God, I'm not going to, I can't open anybody's eyes. You can. But if you, those of you who are listening that can. By the way, one of the frustrations I've had is finding somebody who wouldn't give up on the geoglyphs at Tiwanaku. Tim and I, talked about that on different radio shows, Coast to Coast, Doug's show, the Hagman and Hagman Report, other shows. And I took on two math geniuses who said they could do it. In about 2 weeks, they gave up. One guy from South Africa, God bless you, Sean, comes on a trip and he says, I'll do that for you. My specialty is 3D modeling in space. And so, we're going to show you what the late David Flynn, and possibly, it wasn't God's timing we tried to do that, but the point being is that somebody from South Africa meets Timothy Alberino and myself and the film crew in Cusco, Peru, and the very guy I've been, scouring the earth for shows up and basically says, I can do that for you. So is that not a blessing also, Tim? Again, I lack the words to explain to people how significant this is. And by the way, if any of you want to put up the money necessary for the expedition and you're in physical enough shape to keep up with Tim, you can go. Only what the doctors think. This is not a join the expedition if you can't keep up. This is for somebody who can step up, and then you can step in to the shoes that this film crew has to go to. I will say this. When we were in Cusco, Peru, the safety of the group was absolutely tantamount. And some of the coolest people in the world, we had one lady I think was either 75, 77. Man, she had more spring in her step than anybody I've ever seen. And the people from around the different places in the world, but it was fascinating, the cross-section of the people that joined. So if you want to get involved in a major way financially and you want to go on the expedition, in essence, you'll be taking your orders. And Tim, one of the guys that was with us, who, with a son, basically offered to go and just be a mule for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And so anyway, the thing is that a mule, meaning someone to carry all the heavy camera equipment. So ladies and gentlemen, True Legends, I don't have a name for it yet, but we will be putting out something, probably not a 2-hour thing, but something on this Peru trip because it's that important. Tim, are you going to be able to stay through the half hour, or are you going to go?
No, I can stay. I can stay.
Terrific, Tim. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we're about
So anyway,
4
Doug,
minutes. We have about 4 minutes to the
Okay.
bottom. Go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead, Tim. Take it from there. Please go to the Steve Quayle photo of the day and see what we're talking about. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I just want to say that it was an excellent trip, and there's no way, like as you were saying, Steve, there's no way that the chance meeting in the Coricancha with Anson P. Rambla and with Father Gamara was happenstance. I mean, that was the whole thing felt providential. And we would love to do some more of these in the future. And I know a lot of the people who were on the trip are begging us to do another one. It was a lot of work, but it was phenomenal. I consider it to have been a complete success. And I mean, it was usually when you launch something right out of the gate, the first time you launch something, you have all kinds of problems. Everything that can go wrong goes wrong. This trip was the opposite. I mean, everything went smoothly. Everything worked perfectly. And it was a lot of work, but we didn't have any problems. We didn't have any major health concerns. It was just a wonderful time to get to know all of those people, some of whom I'm sure are listening tonight. We had a great time. We had an amazing group of people, and from all walks of life. In fact, Anson P. Rambla was commenting to me over and over, especially at the end of the trip, how impressed he was with our audience, how impressed he was with the group of people that had assembled in Cusco. He was moved. He was deeply moved by. He said he kept telling me that this doesn't feel like a group of strangers. This feels like a family, and so it was very. It left a very good impression on Anson P. Rambla, who knows all kinds of people from all over the world, and for a guy like that to be impressed with our small group, that was really a great compliment, not only to me and Steve, but to our audience at large, and specifically that audience that we had with us, that group that we had with us in Cusco. So we are considering doing some more of these, and so I encourage you to keep tracking with us, because as soon as we put one together, we'll announce it here on the Hagman and Hagman program, and this is these are trips that are unforgettable, and I think that this one certainly was, and the future ones that will be coming are I believe are going to be just as dynamic.
Fantastic.
And I just got to say this, Doug, that literally the most exciting thing I've ever done, and it took something like this to get me out of the country, and I mean that in a glorious way, because I would have missed out in what I believe is, pun intended, a key moment in history, and I thank God that Tim is persistent. And by the way, we had just amazing open doors. again, when we were in Agua Calientes, and again, Tim, that's the best I can do. I learned like words in Spanish from Tim, and it was funny trying to see me and Anselm P. Rambla talk, and I was drawing pictures in the air and everything, and fortunately, he understands, excuse me, Doug, English better than, I speak any Spanish, none at all. But what was fascinating is we were walking out of our hotel up to the little town of Agua Calientes. On the right side of the boulevard across from the hotel is a flying saucer, a concrete flying saucer that looks exactly like the Nazi flying saucer, and I'll be posting a picture of that in the next couple days. I want to share something. I want to be obscure, Tim, and not explain this for obvious reasons. But Anselm believes that because of this meeting, and I won't go into detail, okay, I have to be obscure to honor him, the prophecies of when everything's going to be revealed is when the condor meets the eagle. Again, when the condor meets the eagle. I can't tell you what those are, and when I give my word, I give my word. But it appears the condor has met the eagle. Tim, do you want to take it from there? I mean, go wherever you want. By the way, the antipode for Cusco, Peru, good night, watch me murder this name, but is in La Gialai, Vietnam. Interesting. The antipode, you draw a line straight through the earth, you end up in Vietnam. I wanted to know that. But go ahead, Tim, because, this is exciting, Doug. This is exciting, Joe. We try, we photograph, we do the videos, and yet I don't think I pray people get it. I really do. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, one of the things that struck me, Steve, and that became exceedingly apparent to me during this trip and has been resonating in my spirit since we've returned, is the fact that we are on the cusp. We really are on the cusp of, let's call it the alien revelation. And obviously people know where Steve and I come from. We come from the biblical worldview. We don't believe that there are any friendly aliens, that the messengers of God, the angels, are our allies, and that these other entities are, in fact, our enemies. But we are on the cusp of a revealing of some kind. And I believe that we're going to be getting on the earth into some trouble, some major trouble worldwide, whether it be some kind of a nuclear threat or something, something that would threaten the entire earth, that would terrorize the entire earth, and then they appear to save us. And they will not, I don't believe that they're appearing, these entities that have been interacting with civilizations for many, many thousands of years, and actually definitely for hundreds of years, going all the way back to the flood, that their appearing is going to be some kind of a grotesque display, a frightening display. I think that it's going to be the opposite. I think we're dealing with angels of light. And when I say that, I mean masquerading as angels of light, entities that are masquerading as angels of light. That brings to mind a fabulous book on alien abductions by a woman named Carla Turner, who wrote a book called Masquerade of Angels, which is, I encourage people to read that book, Masquerade of Angels by Carla Turner, which really does address with what I'm saying right now, that there is going to be a masquerade of angels very soon. And these beings are going to present themselves as benevolent, as the saviors of mankind. They may even claim to be followers of Jesus Christ. And we are very close to this revealing, to this revelation. I believe that there are different factions of entities on the earth interacting with the human race and have been for some time. I believe that the United States government is even now and has been for a while interacting with non-human entities, even coming to even that we have even struck a Faustian agreement, a Faustian bargain with alien entities for technology. And there are different factions out there. Some of them, I believe, some of the most important and powerful ones are living beneath the Andes Mountains in the Shinkana. And these are the things that have become apparent to me. I mean, these were in my mind before, but having gone to Cusco and seeing the things I saw and talking to people I spoke with, it has become, in my mind, an undeniable reality. and it is a prescient reality. It is something that in the very near future, I believe, is going to literally come up onto the scene. The Vatican, the hierarchy of the Vatican, and when I say the hierarchy of the Vatican, I'm referring to the Luciferian hierarchy within the Vatican. I have no question in my mind, are already in contact and have been for quite some time with a non-human race. So not only are the governments of the earth communicating behind the scenes with non-human entities, these are non-human entities that are the enemies of humanity. These are not our friends, but it's a masquerade of angels. And ultimately, the revealing of these creatures, the revealing of these entities, is going to lead to a deception, a great deception, and will snowball into a persecution of the body of Christ. And I believe we're very close to this happening. And I always knew that it was on the radar, and I didn't know when. Would it occur in my lifetime or in the lifetime of my children? I'm now convinced it will occur in my lifetime, or if not in my lifetime, directly in the lifetime of my children. In other words, in the next generation. But I'm convinced it's going to happen in my lifetime. And I have a very strong sense that that's the reason why God has raised up Gen 6 Productions, that Steve and I have come together, and that we're doing this work because God is giving. God is preparing people with information that is going to help them prepare themselves for a deception, the likes of which the earth has never before seen, which is soon to come upon the earth. And again, pun intended, soon to come up on the earth. And the further we go along here, and I think Steve, you would agree, the more the underworld is coming into focus. It's always what's under the ground, always what's under the ground. And that's something that Steve told me before we even began going around the world, was always be looking for not what's above ground, but what's hidden under the ground. And man, I can tell you that there never has a truer statement been spoken. I mean, that is absolutely true everywhere we go around the world. The power players of the earth, the Vatican and the Smithsonian Institution and the other entities out there are concealing. Not only are they concealing artifacts, they're concealing contact with entities in the underworld. And the gates of hell at some point in time, I believe in the near future, are going to open. And it's the first thing that's going to happen is a great deception. It's going to breed a deception the likes of which the earth has never seen. So this is the underlying reality that I have been stricken with over the last few weeks, being in Peru, being in Cusco. I mean, it was palpable. It was palpable, and it was all coming together and making sense. Even Steve, when you were just talking about the blood crying out, and as you were saying that, I was just thinking about the conquest of the Incan Empire and how it seemed as if the cup was running over, and it was time for that culture to be annihilated because they were in contact. They were being taught by entities, by foul, abominable, rebel entities, and their cultures had descended into chaos. And so the Spaniards show up, and boom, the empires fall like dominoes. And so we're in a very explosive. We're coming to a very explosive moment, and I believe that the Vatican is going to be at the center of it. I really do. All roads lead to Rome. That was the saying of our second film. It was the subtext of our second film. The Vatican knows all the secrets. All roads lead to Rome. And that is the thread. That is the narrative that we find everywhere we go around the earth. And we're not just saying that because we like to say it. Look, it costs us to say that. That's not something you can just say and not have any kind of repercussions. There are repercussions because they know that we're saying this, and it's true. And we have, as Steve said, we have some guys out there in the field in a location which we will not yet reveal. And what do you think they're telling us? What do you think the feedback that we're getting, the preliminary information that we're getting from the field in a very specific part of the earth is the churches are sitting on top of the entrances to the underworld, to the tunnels, to where the giants are moving beneath the earth and other entities. And there's no question in my mind that governments of the world, and I'm not talking about the presidents of the earth and the prime ministers of the earth. Those are temporary positions. You have to look at the power behind the throne. You have to look at the occult elite that are pulling the strings from behind the throne, the power behind the throne. They are in direct contact with these non-human entities, many of which reside very literally in the underworld beneath our feet, in the Shinkana, the global Shinkana, if you will, because there is a global Shinkana. And we've been digging deep underground military bases for many decades now. And believe me, we've come into contact with the ancient entities residing in the underworld. And we dig these bases a mile beneath the surface of the earth now. So believe me, we're down there. We're in contact. We're connecting with our modern technology, our modern bases. We're connecting with these ancient things that are beneath our feet. And by the way, there's a reason why they're beneath our feet, but that's for another show. But this is core reality. This is exactly what Steve was told by his contacts. This stuff is core reality. For those of you, some of you out there are probably already making the connection that the Bagram giant, the Kandahar giant, they were in caves. Why in caves? Why do these guys come out of caves? Why are the live giants associated with caves? Why do they have pale skin, blonde hair? Because they're living under the ground. They're in the global Shinkana. That's where these things are moving to and fro across the earth, among other entities. And it's like a volcano. It's like the magma is beginning to build, and there's going to be an explosion on the surface pretty soon. That is the sense that I have, and I know that's the sense that Steve has. And this is core reality, and it is shocking. And it's becoming exceedingly palpable to me, and especially as we were in the navel of the world in Cusco.
And Doug, I'm going to share something. There will be stuff shown, shared, and illustrated at the Gen 6 conferences, Gen 6 conference. Then, I was going to give the website. It's GenSix conferences.com. We're about 75% sold out. But there's going to be stuff shown there that has never been shown before. One day I walked into the studio. This is a true story. And Tim had just, we were talking about stuff. We go over our plans. We lay out on a big whiteboard kind of where we're headed, what we're doing. And I think it was you that said it's time or me that said it's time. One of us said it's time. And within days of that, Anselm said, it's time. Things I've sat on for the last 4 decades are going to come out. Now, that's not a teaser because you've got to see some of this stuff. And I'm telling you what, I think if our mouths were ever shut during this trip, it was only to eat and sleep. But, ladies and gentlemen, please go to Gen6, GenSix conferences.com if you want to go there. And if you're interested in, people are asking me all the time, we're going to live stream. Well, obviously, we want people to see this all over the world in real time. And, we're looking into that right now. The problem is that the mansion in Branson is so huge, but it looks like because this thing is filling up, we will be doing live streaming if we get enough interest. So you can just send me an email saying live stream, yes. And because a lot of people simply can't travel due to medical conditions, a lot of people due to financial conditions, whatever it is. But I want to share something. I'm believing someone is going to really come forward and help the people that can't afford to be there. And again, I'm putting this out. Look, here's the deal, you guys. Tim is convinced he's going to see it in our lifetime. I'm 66. I'm convinced, or his lifetime, I'm convinced I'm going to see it in my lifetime based on a word of the Lord that God has given to me. Look, I'm nobody. I'm just a guy that's trying to walk out my faith and be obedient to Jesus. That's all I care about now. And I will tell you this, that a certain production company, well-known all over the world, called Tim, I'll be kind of vague, but offered him an unlimited budget. I believe it may have been a trap because they wanted him to throw together an expedition to go into the most dangerous place in the world where over 125 people have died, where you couldn't even begin to put the, if you will, expedition together in 30 days. And they basically said, money's no problem, blah, blah, blah. The world has all the money that Satan gives them to deceive. And what we're just asking for is those of you who are capable. I'm not talking about widows. I'm not talking about people who are on fixed pensions. I'm talking about a living legacy in history that you can come on board with us and help us. Doug, this undertaking in which we have our advanced team out in the field now is going to be double the cost of our previous one, because we've got to fly people multiple places in the world at the same time because they're related areas. And when you start doubling up on film teams, you're talking about a 21-day with double film teams, your double film crews, you're talking about close to 10,000 a day. And these guys don't live in the lap of luxury. One of our guys that was out in the field in the jungle got bit on the toe by a rat, and sent me a picture of his toe. And I said, "Good night, my brother. Do they need rabies shots?" And he told me, you'll appreciate this, Tim. He had a wonderful meal of rice, eel, and maggots. I thought, yeah, I know who's eaten that kind of stuff before. That's a compliment to him, kind of in a little sordid way. But the point is, look, we got guys willing to lay their lives down, go dangerous, but we also have people that are trying to dangle the carrot. And the chief thing they want us to do, is this accurate, Tim, is compromise on the Christian stuff. Isn't that pretty much what you're told face to face? I get told that all the time. Go ahead, Tim, take it from there.
That's exactly the case. And see that what people I don't think really understand is that outside of Gen 6 Productions and guys like Ellie Maisuli and Tom Horn, the entire narrative out there is Ancient Aliens, and it's worse. Ancient Aliens, those guys are playing with toys. The real guys that are behind the scenes working and uncovering things and are getting ready to put their work together, and they're coming forth with a very strong delusion. And I believe that, in to some degree, Steve, I believe that Gen 6 Productions is the antidote, at least for the people of God. And I don't say that to be prideful, but we're certainly part of it. Let's just put it that way. We're certainly part of it. And because if we don't go out there and find and get ahead of this story and uncover these things before or concurrently with these other people that are out there with a different narrative, then nobody on our side of the fence is going to be prepared for anything. So we're right there alongside of people working and uncovering and exploring and investigating alongside of people who have the polar opposite narrative than we do. And that means our narrative is simple. We believe in the gospel of Jesus Christ, period. That Jesus is the exclusive salvation of the human race and so forth. The biblical narrative, period. That's what we believe, and we won't turn from it. Not 1 degree will we turn away from that central truth, the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ. But these other guys, although they walk with us and agree with us 90%, in some cases 95, 99%, it's that 1% or that 5% or that 10% where they take a different path. And although they've been with us and they agree with us at 90%, it's that little bit that we disagree on that makes their narrative a delusion and a lie. And so we're in the trenches, and we're there, and I believe God has us right there. We're right on the cutting edge of a lot of this information because we're placed there. We're put in the right place at the right time, and we meet the right people. And not all of the people we meet with and work with are believers in the gospel. We're just in the field alongside of the other people who are in the field uncovering these amazing things. But we're bringing to the table the biblical narrative. We're bringing to the table a perspective that comes from the gospel of Jesus Christ. We have the true perspective on this thing. I mean, we understand what's going on. We can put all the pieces together, and they can't, because the final pieces that they're going to put in place are going to contradict the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so that's our heart. That's what we do, and that's why it's so important to me and so important to Steve. And again, I mean, we're tracking things. And by the way, and I know Steve can attest to this, is we get contacted all the time now by people who are leading in the field of the kind of stuff that we deal with. And I'm talking about secular people, the people in the secular arena who are watching us, who are watching Gen 6 Productions, and want to come alongside of us and work with us and different projects. And it's because, and this is why, it's not because me or Steve are so great or because we do such great work. It's because God has literally placed us. He has placed us on the cutting edge of this information purposely. We absolutely believe this is a divinely orchestrated situation with Gen 6 Productions, and we're finding ourselves always placed at the right place at the right time and in the right circumstance to be on the cutting edge of a lot of this information. Us and guys like L.A. Marsuli, Tom Horn, and others who are in the field. I mean, and it's a battle, believe me. We're dealing with core reality. This is not fairy tales. We're not out there just trying to make money with flashy movies. This is information that gets people into big trouble. And we're broadcasting it all over the place. And we know for a fact that there's very powerful people who don't want us to be talking about this stuff. So, and I'm not saying that to aggrandize us by any means. We are committed to the gospel. We are committed to the biblical narrative. That is what drives us forward. And that's what we do. And it's exciting because, as Steve has always says, is that God is going to be revealing everything. He's going to be making everything known. And we feel like that's where we are. That's what we're doing, and we're part of that process. So, but yeah, I mean, I've got information coming to me now on a weekly basis from the people that we have in the field. Steve and I have information coming to us, just absolutely confirming everything we've been saying in our films. The last 3 films we've done: Technology of the Fallen, The Unholy Sea, and Holocaust of Giants. That body of work that we have now is Gen 6 Productions. It's just getting confirmed and confirmed and confirmed by the preliminary expedition we have in the field right now, by other individuals who are working with us. It's just absolutely amazing how it just keeps. It's like we punched a hole in the ground, and now it's becoming a chasm. I mean, it's opening up beneath our feet, and it's just amazing to see the kind of information pouring in, confirming everything that we've said about the Vatican, confirming everything Steve's been saying about giants for all these years, confirming what we're saying about this great deception that's brewing beneath our feet. It's pouring in, and it is core reality. It's hardcore, and it's, as I said, it's just absolutely fascinating to watch this information come in. So we've got some really amazing stuff in the works right now. If you have not seen our films, especially if you haven't seen the last 2 we did, the Unholy Sea and Holocaust of Giants, go see those films. You can see them. You can stream them live on. By the way, when you stream them, you own them on Vimeo. You own those films on Vimeo. They're not digital downloads, but you own them online via Vimeo. You can find our films in all their forms: DVD, Blu-ray, and the online streaming at TrueLegendsTheSeries.com. TrueLegendsTheSeries.com. You'll find all the information there. And if you have, especially Holocaust of Giants, if you have not seen Holocaust of Giants, I encourage you to go and see Holocaust of Giants, because we put some puzzle pieces into place in that film that nobody else has dealt with, and that I believe are absolutely essential to understanding the question of the post-flood giants and some other very fascinating topics, such as the sorcery, Canaanite sorcery, which is the same kind of sorcery, which is the root of the sorcery that the Luciferian elite are engaged in now, the left-hand path of the occult, the Aleister Crowley, the followers of Aleister Crowley and Thelema, and all of the left-hand demonic sexual magic, because there's the left hand of the occult, there's the right hand of the occult. The left hand's the nasty, dirty, dark stuff. The right hand's the angels and light, masquerade of angels type stuff. They're both coming from the same. Both have the same root. It's Luciferianism, and we're exposing these things. And especially in our last film, we talk about Canaanite sorcery, and the pieces are coming together. So if you haven't seen those films, I highly encourage you to go see, especially Unholy Sea and the Holocaust of Giants. TrueLegendsTheSeries.com.
Yeah, I can second that.
And Doug?
Yes.
How many minutes do we have?
We've got about
3
minutes, sir.
Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank each and every one of you who have prayed for us. Literally, Tim knows firsthand the saving power of Jesus Christ. You've heard his story on Hagman and Hagman. We've had people literally being awakened in the night. And I want to share something. There are certain things I want to release. I'm on the edge of my seat, but the Lord said, not yet. And I learned something really valuable. The effects that God wants are best attained when you do everything according to his time. So I will say this. As Nehemiah was commanded of the Lord to build the walls, there are certain things that Tim and I are doing, and I can only sum it up, Doug. This isn't to be mysterious or special, I am the chiefest of sinners. I got issues. I've tried to be transparent and have that transparency used against me, but that's okay. It's about Jesus. But here's what I'm going to say. There will come a time when the things that God has locked within my heart and told me, not yet. Nehemiah said it this way, neither told I any man what God had placed within my heart to do. Some people get Tim and I, some people don't. If someone wants to step up to the plate in a big way to help us, and I mean someone who can afford it, look, fly into Bozeman. Tim and I will give you a briefing of what we can't say publicly, and I think you will be more than wanting to get on board, because you got to leave a legacy, and leaving a lot of money to a bunch of kids that don't know what to do with it except whatever kids do with money, what I call squandered inheritance. Please, ladies and gentlemen, your works will go before you, and you have no idea, Doug. We get this all the time. Why is this important? Tens of thousands of people around the world have given their heart to Jesus Christ based on the DVDs and the books. So this is a big deal, you guys. And I can tell you this, our commitment to the Lord is absolutely unequivocal by the grace of God and through the intercessors. We won't sell out. And I'll tell you this, in the next couple months, a major television station, not in this country, wants to know. They say their people listen to us in other countries, and they're sending a film team. So that's all I'm at liberty to say. God bless you, Doug. God bless you, Joe. To each and every one that went to the conference, bless you all. You didn't just observe history. You made history. And so we'll be bringing you updates. Again, ladies and gentlemen, sign up for the conference, gen6conferences.com. There will be stuff there that you've never seen or heard before. And I believe this. This is going to say it's not only going to be mind-blowing, it's going to shake your paradigm. And then Henry Gruver and David Langford are going to bring you some of the most powerful personal ministry and revelation you've ever had in your life. We're going to give you the whole history of the world. They're going to give you a new start in the power of the Holy Ghost.